Hello, my name is John Colquitt. I work for Alabama FFA as an improvement program specialist. And I'm here today to talk to you about our conduct of chapter meetings competition that we have in the FFA. And this is a bit of an introduction to help the teachers in coaching this. If you're wanting to initiate a program where you have the desire to have a team, I want to talk to you about that today and perhaps go through some of the basics of the competition. And as a result of that, you can get back in touch with me if you want to do that and get further into it. I can have additional information given to you. First of all, it's a great contest. It's a 7-member team. It's done with junior high students. And one of the best things about it is that it helps the young people initiate getting involved in our competitions in your program. In addition, it also helps your overall leadership program. It helps train your officers for the future. It shows the importance of opening ceremonies and carrying out meetings. And I think that it's one of the better things you can do to help your program. Also, it helps in later development and leadership in the FFA. It's a big component of those that run for district and state officer. So if you think about all the advantages of it, I think it's a good way to go to help improve your program and the individual students that are involved with it. So I'm going to be covering several things today about the particular this contest. The members must be enrolled in 7th, 8th, or 9th grade at the time of the competition, and at the time that is given, they will have to take a test that relates to opening ceremonies and parliamentary procedure, as you might expect. In addition to that, there will be information that will be tested on the officer's duties, their meeting room preparation, the general FFA knowledge that they need, and of course parliamentary procedures. So those are the things that they will initially need information in and that you will need to cover with them. The students, when the 7-member team goes into the competition, they go in, they sit down, they're prompted, they get 1 minute to look at their card. All of them are given a card, and it will have what they are to carry out. It will have a main motion on top of it that they will have to discuss after the opening ceremonies is over with. And then some of those members will be given a prompt. It will be highlighted the motion that they have to carry out during the competition. So it's important for them to realize that. Not all the members on the team, of the 6 members that are sitting in the audience, in other words, the officers, not all of them will have a required motion to do. 4 out of the 6 will. But they get a minute to look at that, and then they proceed and are given a prompt, and they're told to start their opening ceremonies. There are the motions that are required. Not all of them that we have in our parliamentary procedure competition is required of them. They have to know how to do the question of privilege. There are 2 privilege motions they have to understand and know how to carry out. The question of privilege is the first one, and then a recess. They have to know how to conduct that. In addition, they have some subsidiary motions: the previous question, which ends debate, the postpone definitely or postpone to a certain time, a refer to a committee, and then a postpone indefinitely. Then they have the incidental motions too that they may be called on to do. The incidental motion to parliamentary inquiry is one of those, and then the division of the assembly after a vote is done, and then a point of order. So those are the 10 motions that they are required to know how to carry out. So they get into the competition, and the first thing they do, of course, after that minutes, they do the opening ceremonies. And it's graded upon, first, accuracy. They have to have it accurate because they're counting off points for every word that they miss, and the good teams aren't going to miss words, so that's just a fact. And of course, their poise, their expression, and being able to carry that out in both the opening and at the end of the meeting in the closing ceremony. So they have to do both of those. They will get a card, and that motion, as I said before, will be highlighted that person in that particular office will have to do. It will be highlighted there for them, and they have to carry that out during that presentation that they're doing. 4 out of 6 will get that motion, and 2 won't. This event is timed. They have up to 13 minutes. At 13 minutes and 1 second, they have points deducted for that. So one of the things you have to do is practice a good bit so you can know how many times they can debate, how they carry it out, and do it within that 13 minutes. And we have, at some of the competitions, we've had an electronic device telling them what the time was so they can see that. And I'm in favor of that. They shouldn't have to guess on the time. They need to know what the time is. But it is an important part of it. They also need to prepare for questions afterwards in the competition, because it says in our state contest that they have to answer questions about preliminary procedure, their officer duties and parts and things like that. So on our FFA website, it makes you aware of all of those things that are required for the competition. You can go to alabamaffa.org and go to the resources section under the LDEs. You find that, you go to that, and it will give you the entire booklet of all the rules and regulations that are required of the competition. So that's one of the things that they do. As far as the motions are concerned, those 10 motions that they have to know how to do, and I'll try to briefly go through this so you'll have an idea. If I were going to train a team, which I've helped with teams, I've told them, I said, look, get a script, tell them how to do the motion correctly, the best way to go about doing that. The first motion, for example, the first privilege motion, question or privilege, the member will see they have that on their card, they stand up, and they say question or privilege. They don't have to gain recognition. They can interrupt the speaker, although I wouldn't suggest they do that. I wouldn't want to mess up someone's debate, but they stand up, say question or privilege, and an example of that is this. He'll say question or privilege. The chairperson will say, or the president will say, state your question. And it may be, may I remove my jacket? May we have the speaker speak up? I'm having difficulty in hearing them. We can adjust the lighting, whatever it may be that you come up with. And then the chairman responds. Once he has responded, then that member sits back down, whether that chairman grants it or forgoes that question or privilege. That's something that is done that's normally out of order, so it is a privileged motion. Another privileged motion is a recess. You take a break in the meeting. That one you have to have recognition for. The member would stand up, gain recognition. They would call on their name or their office, and they would say, I move to recess for 10 minutes. And then they would go straight to a vote. There isn't debate on it, so you will go straight to a vote with that. Now, of course, I always tell the students when they're doing this, don't pass the recess. Now, the person that puts up the recess motion, of course, he needs to or she needs to vote for it. But then the other members don't need to vote for it, because if you recess, you have to recess. So that's a dangerous thing. And I had a team that did that one time on a recess. So that's something you have to be aware of. The students have to know which way to vote on these things. So they need to keep their motion and keep the business flowing. And if you go to a recess, you can't do that. The subsidiary motions, previous question. Previous question ends debate. The member would stand up, gain recognition. The student would say, I move to previous question, gets a second, and then he immediately, or she immediately, the chairman goes to put that to a vote. It requires a 2/3 vote. And then once that fails, because you want to fail that, because you don't want to end debate, because you can't get any more points. So you vote that down and then move on with the business after that. The next one is postpone definitely, or postpone to a certain time. The chairman, business is going on. The student says, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman. They stand up, they call their name, and they say, I move to postpone this motion until our next regularly scheduled meeting. So they do that, and there is debate on that motion. I would have students prepared to debate a postpone definitely, and they need to have a set time that postpone definitely is going to transpire, and they carry out debate on that. And once they have done that, have finished that motion and completed it, I tell the students too, you have to fail that, or you've ended up your business there. You can't debate any further on it or do any other motions that will count for it. The next subsidiary motion is refer to a committee. And this motion, as far as presenting is concerned, very much like the other subsidiary motions, the member would stand up, gain recognition, and say, I move to refer this motion to a committee of 3 or 5, whatever you want it to be, a committee of 3 appointed by the chair to report back at the next meeting. Once it gets a second, then you can debate that referred to a committee, and the students need to know how to debate or refer to a committee. And that's an important thing to be able to, or skill to be able to have. So that refer to a committee is important. The next subsidiary motion is an amend. You change the wording within a motion with that one. That's the power of the amend. the member would stand up and say, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, they gain recognition. I move to amend the motion by adding on the words by December the 1st, for example, on the end of the motion. It gets a second, and then you can debate that amend. And if it fails or if it passes, whichever way it goes, then the chairman would handle that. Then there's a postpone indefinitely. Now, postpone indefinitely kills the motion. It's essentially done in many instances to determine whether or not a motion is going to pass. And many times, the students that are against it will put up a postpone indefinitely to try to kill it and get rid of it. But you put up the postpone, you say, stand up, you get recognition, you say, I move to postpone the motion indefinitely. It gets a second, and then you debate that motion. One of the things about these motions, if a student is required and puts up a motion, it is expected of them to debate the motion that they put up. So that's just one of those standing things that is expected in the competition. One of the other ones, as far as the incidentals is concerned, we get started on that. The first incidental motion is a parliamentary inquiry. Parliamentary inquiry is just a question about procedure that a member has that they can get clarified, that they can stand up and do and get credit for. They don't have to have recognition. They can stand up at any time and say parliamentary inquiry, and that chairman will go to that student and say, state your inquiry. And then they ask that question. We always had something set up with that. Was a vote requirement on orders of the day, or postpone indefinitely, whatever it may be. Or there are a myriad of questions you could ask, but you have something that student knows how to present and the chairman knows how to handle. Then division of the assembly. Now, division is done to clarify a vote. A person can do this sitting down. They don't have to have recognition. They don't have to stand up. After the vote is taken, then they just merely say division. They need to say it loud enough so they get recognition on it, and then that chairman is supposed to know that they are supposed to take a revote. Now, what the chairman is supposed to do at that point is to get a more accurate way of being able to consider that vote. So you would move from a voice vote to a standing vote or a show of hands, something that you can clarify and get an exact count on that particular motion and how that's carried out. Point of order is another incidental motion. You want to clarify if you see a breach in the rules and you see something that's transpired that you know isn't something that should be done, you can call a point of order. They stand up, they don't have recognition, they say point of order, the chairman says state your point, and once that point is made, if the motion didn't have a second, or if the wrong person is debating, whatever that breach of the rules might have been, then you call that point of order. And that is something that can be clarified even much later on if a breach has been done. So that's one of those motions that is incidental. Now, one of the motions, you don't adjourn in this meeting. That's one of the things you do a closing ceremony. They don't do an adjourn. So that's one of the things you need to be aware of. So those are all the motions and basically how you present them. And you can find Robert's Rules of Order online on how it's proper to go through and present those motions in an expected way. Then we'll get into debate. Debate is the fun part of it in my estimation, and students like to do debate. Kids like arguing with each other anyway, so what we try to teach them to do is do it in a way that's effective, something that they can use in other ways too, besides just an FFA meeting. I always tried to tell the students to have enough volume, have some passion about what they're going to be doing, and also have some facts to base. And because what a debate is supposed to do is persuade another member to see it their way, to change their mind. If they're in the negative, they want to be positive, and then they're supposed to persuade them to see it their way. So perhaps they'll change their mind. I always had it planned to where each member had a role. I didn't care which way they went, but if they were going to be negative and positive so you could have everything lined up right, it was important for them to have that role in place and to stick to their role. I like topics. I like them having a specific topic that they were going to debate on that would fit most anything. I think that's important to do because at this age it's hard in many instances for young people to be able to debate off the cuff, as we say. That can be a challenge. Now, if they're able to do that, that's fine. It looks good. If they're smooth with it, they can certainly do that. Some students are able to do that. They can debate that debatable motion twice. the main motion they're given, they can debate it 2 times, they can debate a refer 2 times, they can debate postpones 2 times, amends 2 times. I tell the students in the conduct of chapter meetings competition to try to debate, each person needs to debate 3 times. There's a certain amount of points assigned to them, and they certainly need to debate at least 3 times. And some of them debate 4 times. And they need to learn how to debate all those debatable motions that are a part of the competition. The refer, the postpone, the amend. They need to learn how to do those. Now we get to the suggestions to how to prepare a team. First, practice the ceremonies over and over again until you get that right. We had a student just a couple of days ago that had been doing it a long time, was very good at it, and he messed up a couple of the words. And in a competition, they're going to catch that. They have a copy of the ceremonies in front of them. The first and foremost thing is accuracy with our opening ceremonies. And then I would, after practicing the ceremonies and getting proficient at that, what I would have them to do then is start introducing a main motion and then try to debate that. I like to have students to write out debates so that a debate is like a little speech. It needs to have an introduction, 2 or 3 reasons, which is the body, and then a call to action at the end. A conclusion, as you were, but a call to action. So they would stand up and say, I'm in favor of this motion, please vote for this because, and then you have 2 or 3 reasons. And then at the end you say, so please vote in favor of the motion or against the motion, whichever way they're going to go. So it needs to be something that's understandable, it has passion behind it, and you have to practice doing that. It takes quite a bit of practice to get to the point that you're really good and effective as a debater. And students have to have, especially in the junior high ages, they have to do that over and over again so they're confident in it and can carry it out. And I say this about, as far as the competition is concerned, then introduce the other motions slowly, interject them into and start assigning the postpones and the recesses and all of those that they have to do that we covered earlier. Introduce them as you go along, and then after a period of time, then you start just passing out cards and make it like a contest. I think that's an important part of preparing a team. Watch teams from the past. You can find a lot of them online. I have links to conduct of chapter meeting teams that I found out there that are really good teams. The national finals is on the internet, and it's always on there, so you can go back and watch them. That's always a good thing to do. And one of the things I think is important too is to record your team so they can see themselves. And sometimes I know they don't like to be recorded, but that's something they'll get used to, because if they're that kind of student that likes doing this activity, I don't think they'll mind it too much. So there are a lot of different things that you can gain from this competition. That's just an overview of the contest. I hope it helped out in you understanding it. If you haven't had a team before, we'd love to have you. We need to have a lot of conduct of chapter meeting teams. It helps improve our FFA. It helps those students that are running for district and state office, and it helps them in their life, because then they know how to carry out a meeting in the right way. That can help them later on if they're involved in other organizations. It's always in our churches, a lot of good things that they can do with this particular skill that so few actually know how to carry it out. So I'd urge you to have a team, practice with them. It's a lot of fun. You can do it there at school. And most of the students, that once they get into it, that particular type of student, they really enjoy it and like carrying it out. So if you need any additional information, get in touch with me online at alabamaffa.org. I'm in the Central District, John Colquitt, and you can get in touch with me, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. Watch your team. I've watched teams before online. They send me videos of them and I critique them. I'll be glad to do that. You can get in touch with me on my cell phone. It's 334-782-4484. Any of those things you'd like to do and you need any help with it, we'd be glad to do that. I enjoy the contest a lot. I think it helps our FFA, and I look forward to seeing your team at the state in Alabama to make our Alabama FFA better and stronger. Thank you.